All right, Lisa's saying something in the chat. I don't know. She'll say in the chat. Okay, great. Love it. Yeah, this is we'll save it for the thing, but this is interesting for this crew for the movie. So cool. We are all gathered here today. We'll see if anyone else pops in live. Thank you for coming live, Lisa. It's very exciting. Let me share my screen. We are here today to talk about 1985's Terry Gilliam masterpiece, Brazil. So I thought we could start with our usual introductions, meeting panelists. So I will stop sharing. Let's start with Jeremy.
Absolutely. Hey guys, good to see you all again. I am Jeremy, aka JMO from the Old Switcheroo.com podcast, and I'm really excited to talk about this movie that, I mean, we're going to get into our history with it, but this is the most Kyle movie I've ever seen. It's incredible. So I had to get that out.
How about? Yeah, great.
And my wife is Jacqueline Burton.
Nice.
Jackie.
Over.
I'm Jackie Burton. Yeah, I'm Jeremy's wife. Hello.
Well, that was very was quick and to the point.
Oh, I don't. Well,
She also likes lavender and long hikes.
There you go.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, while you're both on there, I forgot we didn't loop it in. What is your, and we'll go to Sarah next, but what is your relationship to Brazil? Is it first time watching, or what's your story with it?
Yeah, first time watching it. I think I just always like heard of it, and it's kind of like very part of this. Like, I'm surprised that I haven't watched it until now, because I feel like when I was super into like avant-garde movies, this would have been like, I would have loved this in like high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, first time watching it. I have lots of feelings. Excited to talk about it.
Jeremy, what is yours? Is this your first time as well?
Also, first time knowing of its existence when you guys were bringing it up. Literally never saw the poster, or maybe I did, but it just, it did not stick. I also can't believe I didn't know this movie exists, because it shares so many commonalities with things I really love. Most of all, the cast. Mm-hmm. The cast is kind of incredible. I know you'll get into it, but how did I not know this movie existed with this cast? It's wild.
Totally. How about Sarah?
I'm Sarah. I'm Kyle's wife. I feel like this movie always came up because Holy Grail is one of my all-time favorite movies, and so I feel like it would always come up in conversation, probably with Kyle. He'd be like, "Oh, we should watch Brazil sometime. That's his other movie." So it was. We just had never got around to it, so it was first time.
Yeah. And I am amazingly the same way. This might be like the most Kyle movie, but I've been I've been a Terry Gilliam fan for a long time. Like 12 Monkeys is one of my favorite movies, and of course Holy Grail. And I watched actually the recent Time Bandits Apple series. They did a reboot with Lisa Kudrow, and then I went back and watched Time Bandits just this year. So that was like the first time I'd seen it. But I had Brazil on my list to watch for 30 years now or whatever, and it's always like heard it's great and amazing, but I've never watched. So this is like actually all four of us are seeing for the first time, which is pretty cool.
What is Time Bandits?
12 Monkeys too.
Yeah,
that was another, I feel like that's a very underrated.
Oh yeah. Time Bandits is like, it's kind of interesting. It's like well, I don't want to spoil it, but it's kind of more, I want to say more kind of kid focused of a movie, but kind of another time travel related goofy kind of fun movie. You'd probably like it, I bet you. Yeah. There you go. Lisa recommends it for sure. Cool. So let me start with, as we do to set the tone as usual, let me share my screen here again and talk about some of our fun facts to set the tone. So one of the most interesting things about this movie is never do they, aside from the song, never do they talk about Brazil. It's not set in Brazil. Why is it called Brazil? So in 1939, Ari Barroso wrote the samba song Aquarela de Brazil, which translates to Watercolor of Brazil. Before they reworked it for this movie, the song was in 1942's Disney short film Saludos Amigos. Walt Disney heard the song while he was visiting Brazil, as part of FDA's Good Neighbor policy, which involved Brazil's president wanting to regard America as a friend, which is interesting. The movie was developed. The movie was developed under the titles "The Ministry" and 1984 and a half. The latter, not only obviously a nod to 1984, which is a huge influence on this, but also the movie 8.5, which is one of Gilliam's favorite films. And they also settled on the name Brazil, obviously relating to the name of its signature tune, which we can probably talk about. One of the biggest controversies about this movie was, we'll get to the ending as we get to it, but they, Universal, wanted to release the movie with the original happy ending, without the final coda piece, which we'll talk about. And Terry Gilliam took out a full-page ad in Variety, directed at the head of Universal, Sid Sheinberg, and basically had him strong-armed him with critic reviews, etc., to put out the version that came out. So similar to some other movies we talked about, there was a controversy about the ending. The director, Gilliam, told The Believer he felt the movie was about the heart of Brazil is responsibility, involvement. You can't just let the world go on doing what it's doing without getting involved. Of course, Sam falls in love, so he falls vulnerable. Never fall in love. So pretty dark world at the time, which is crazy. And then a couple more final things. The torture scene at the end of the movie was filmed in a former coal and gas-fired power station in Croydon, England. In 1991, everything but 2 chimneys were demolished there. And in a strange turn of events, an IKEA now operates there, causing shoppers to engage in capitalism. So pretty amazing. And then finally, in terms of the design, so some writers say that this movie really popularized the idea of steampunk and kind of took it into what it became all over the place with a retro kind of future design. Some other films that have drawn inspiration from it include Delicatessen, The City of Lost Children. This is for Jeremy. Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel's Super Mario Brothers, 1993.
I was wondering.
It's incredible. And this is one I'll talk about when we get to it. It stood out to me immediately was the Coen Brothers' Hudsucker Proxy, very much influenced by this movie. And there was an Alex Proyas movie called Dark City. Also for me and for Sarah, one of our favorite movies, the Tim Burton and Anton Furst, when they were designing Gotham City for the first Batman, were inspired by the production design of Brazil, which you can definitely see. And then I think, are you both Jackie and Jeremy Jupiter Ascending fans? I forget if you were. Yeah, so
yes.
I figured these last two are like dead set at Jeremy. So one, Jupiter Ascending, features a scene deliberately designed to resemble the bureaucracy in Brazil. It features Terry Gilliam in a cameo role and a reference to a Statute 27B/6. And then Star Wars The Last Jedi, another big Jeremy favorite, was also heavily inspired by Brazil. The planet of Canto Bight is aesthetically similar to Brazil. They share similar themes, and a direct reference can be heard when Finn and Rose are arrested for parking violation 27B/6, a nod to Form 27B, without which no work can be done by the repairman of the Department of Works. So a lot of
this is canonically connected to Star Wars.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the meat of it here. Sorry, thanks for keeping up in the chat. Lisa's all over the chat, which is awesome. Let me stop sharing here. I want to talk to you about ducks. That's our theme for this here. So as we've been doing this in these before, we just read a little snippet of the plot where it starts and then kind of do breakouts to talk about what happens. And Lisa, feel free to chime in too in the chat if you'd like to. So starting with the introduction to this dystopia. Film opens in a grim dystopian world dominated by a faceless bureaucracy and a reliance on outdated technology. An administrative error, a literal bug, a fly, falls into the typewriter, leading to the wrongful arrest and execution of an innocent man, Archibald Buttle, instead of the suspected terrorist, Harry Tuttle. Meanwhile, we meet Sam Lowry, a daydreaming cog in the machine. He works at the Ministry of Information and escapes his dull life through fantastical dreams of himself as a heroic winged figure rescuing a beautiful woman. So I will start there. Maybe we'll start with Sarah. What was your impression of the intro to this movie?
Okay, so my favorite thing about this movie, full stop, is at the beginning, which is the scene about beautifying the ducks. And like it opens with that. And then I love that every scene in the movie, there's crazy ductwork, but none of them are beautified, even though, like, we saw the commercial at the beginning about beautifying them, but, like, even the most wealthy spaces have insane ducts going everywhere that aren't beautified at all, even in, like, the very fancy, like, his mom's, like, penthouse still has, like, insane ducts with that aren't beautified, and the purpose of them is never mentioned, and that was just like one of my all-time favorite things. I did not understand the dream, and I'm sure we'll get more into it because I have the feeling Jackie and I are going to have some overlap. I'm just guessing. In our feelings about the gender dynamics, but yes, I was not a big fan of the winged flight, any of his daydreams, actually. I felt were kind of, I don't know if it's tonally off. I don't know. I didn't really like the Walter Mitty sequences.
But you didn't like them in the sense that, like, it made you like the character less?
I mean,
think that's
I guess
intentional.
It fit the theme of, like, distracting from reality, but I guess I have to think about it more. I feel like, to me, more the film was saying something about, like, not distracting with, like, commercialism and, like, all these other things, whereas, like, I feel like imagination is this good thing. I don't know. I just didn't like the way they were portrayed. I have to think about it a little bit more about why I didn't like them. But I don't want to go too far into other scenes.
Right. I think I wouldn't have liked them if this movie wasn't a dark comedy.
Right.
And I think so for those who haven't seen the movie multiple times, I mean, I guess it's really the way the story is told. It's almost like the plot happens in between his dream sequences. But he has a fantasy of himself, like, as Kyle said, like a winged creature. And I just thought it was all a metaphor for, like, male ego and, like, this heightened sense of importance that we all carry ourselves. Like, when we all think of ourselves as, like, I don't know if Kyle's that way, but, like, I feel like I definitely catch myself thinking of myself as, like, the main character. And that's a joke now, main character energy or whatever. So I loved them. There's very little I didn't love about this movie. and I also, Sarah, I also wrote down on my 3 pages of notes, first thing, I want to talk about ducks. Do your ducks seem old-fashioned?
Yes.
And the air ducts or the water ducts or the, like, I love how when they open up the wall and you see all of the ducts, they breathe. But it breathes like it's a lung, and it sounds like an old gasping man. And I don't know. I just thought there was so much symbolism. I could go on for hours, I think, so don't let me.
Yeah.
But I just feel like every scene, there's an interesting metaphor, and it's different from the previous scene, and they all landed for me. I loved this movie.
How about Jackie?
I really loved how it began, I think, with, like, a couple politicians on TV, right? And I loved how they were talking about, like, upholding good old-fashioned values, and just, like, how that term is so, like, nebulous and, like, abstract, and, like, what does that even mean, especially in, like, the society they're in. And that also on top of, like, it being like a Christmas movie, and, like, all of this starting with, like, the imagery of Christmas, and, like, that being contrasted with, like, how, like, inept and, like, almost, like, evil, and, like, the tragedy of, like, people dying from the just ineptitude of, like, the people in power. And, like, I don't know, I just loved, like, how it was framed with that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah didn't even mention, like, Sarah commented immediately on the magnifying glass in front of a screen. It's like a screen within a screen. The whole thing, which is, like, one layer removed, like, it's that faceless. It was kind of crazy.
Oh, I also even think they mentioned something about, like, letting the other win.
Hmm.
Do you guys remember that in the beginning with the politicians? Of like,
Yes.
we just need to let the other win. And there's so much of this movie that's very prescient.
Mhm.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
Yes.
But like that especially, I'm like, wow, like I think, and I feel like the 80s is when like conservatism started to become like very like people started to see the holes in what it actually represents as an ideology. So maybe it's reflecting that. Yeah.
What you're referring to is that they're talking about like, oh, just play the game and you'll get a lot more enjoyment out of life. And if
Right.
you
Oh
just
yeah,
let-
the game. Yes.
yeah, and they're referring
Oh,
to
right.
terrorists,
Mhm.
but also we come to learn that that term is now just used for really anybody that the government isn't fond of,
Yeah.
which
Mm.
used to be satire, and now that's how the word is used all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, the idea of the politicians on Christmas saying this very this seems amazing because it's this evil villain monologue, you know, being delivered by a politician on a news talk show, and it ends with Merry Christmas, everyone. It's like, can you imagine saying something so twisted on Christmas Eve? That used to be satire, and now we have the Trump tweets on Christmas Eve
Every
about all
Christmas,
the
yep.
villains. It's just
Yeah.
like, I mean, I don't want to be that obnoxious person, but Kyle said this is the perfect time to watch this movie
Mhm.
because so much of what you know would have been jokingly extreme in the mid 80s is now literally where we're at right now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
one of the scariest science fiction movies I've seen ever because
Yeah.
it's that's true. How far is this going to go, guys? Sarah, can we talk about your ducts? I think they're going to come up soon.
They might. They might. I
Yeah.
love all the
Oh,
background
sorry.
signs, like as we know. Sorry, Jackie, I interrupt you. All the different promotional, you know, like loose lips, sink ships type signs in the background. I loved loose talk as
Yeah.
news talk, which was great. And then also I loved when they took the husband away and she gave her a receipt for your husband and then a receipt for your receipt, which is incredible. So, but yeah, and that was my other note. Just was like immediately when as soon as they launched it, all not only the style but like the dramatic camera moves and close-ups and movement was very Hudsucker Proxy. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but very much feels like that it was taken right from this, which was kind of cool. Jackie, you were gonna say something? Sorry, before I.
Oh, it's totally fine. I just like immediately was. I didn't know that it was so intentionally like alluding to 1984, but it immediately like felt that way. And just what you guys were saying about like if it's even satire anymore, it reminded me of like when I watched Mad Max a few years ago, and I was like, oh, like we actually need to know how to survive. We run out of oil. Like and even with this, I was like, oh, like I actually do need to know how to navigate having like leadership like this, and like it's. I feel like this cycle just keeps continuing where we create dystopian fiction, and then like 40 years from now, it's just
Reality.
not
Right.
longer fiction, and then like it'll just keep going, and that like really freaks me out, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Well, so on that high note, let's go to the next scene, next part. So Sam's dull routine is disrupted when he catches a glimpse of Jill Layton, a truck driver who resembles the woman from his dreams. Jill, trying to report the wrongful arrest of her neighbor Buttle, is labeled a terrorist. Sam becomes obsessed with her and decides to track her down using his connections at the ministry. His journey into her life marks the start of his rebellion against the system. His mother, a vain socialite with powerful connections, arranges a promotion for him to the Information Retrieval Department. Although he initially resists, Sam accepts the promotion as it provides him access to Jill's records. However, his new role immerses him deeper into the oppressive bureaucracy. Using his position, Sam manipulates the system to erase Jill's incriminating records, effectively putting himself at risk. So I'll stop there. Maybe we can start with Sarah this time. Your thoughts on that?
So yeah, again, like for some reason I did not like the she's the whole catalyst for him. That bothered me. And I'm not sure how to articulate why. Maybe somebody else can articulate why. It felt very forced, I guess. which I get it. The movie is kind of absurdist, right?
Mhm.
And but the fact that he was dreaming about her, and then like I thought they were gonna have a history together or something, or like she was in his memories, or you know what I mean. But I just thought it was weird that he was just happened to be dreaming about her. But I loved so much the scene in the restaurant. That was one of my favorite scenes where the waiter tries to make him order by number and he like won't follow
Yes.
the system. Like that was so good. Like it was such a perfect absurdist, like, and you're just like, why is he insist? He's like, say the number, say the number. You won't say it. And I loved it so much because it's like, I think we've all felt that way, like with systems where we're just like, I don't want to follow the system. Like, I don't want to say the number. And the waiter's like, you have to say the number.
But do you remember, Sarah, when you and me and Kyle and Mike and Jackie went to that show and we got Mendocino Farms?
Yes, I was thinking
beforehand?
about Mendocino Farms.
And Jackie's salad was ready. Mine was taking longer to cook, and Jackie was hungry. And I went up and said, "Can I have my wife's salad?" No, we have a rule. Excuse me. Yeah, all food goes out at once. So no.
Mendocino Farms.
Yeah, you're living it. You're living Brazil.
And I'm not saying allegedly because I lived that. I was there.
It was so funny. Well, and I thought too about how even like when I first started working at McDonald's, like in the 90s, it was when like they first debuted like the numbers, like the value meals, you know what I mean? And like I remember there was this thing where older people wouldn't order by number, and it's like I was the young one who was like, God, can't you just say number one? And they'd be like, I want a Big Mac, fries, and a Coke. I'm like, okay, so the number one. No, I want a Big Mac, fries, and a Coke. Like, okay, bro. So then I'd punch number one and I'd give them what they wanted, you know?
My grandma.
Now we accept it, right? Now everybody just accepts the ordering by number.
No, I'll straight up say
more
venti. Yeah, like I say venti now. I resisted saying venti at Starbucks for 20 years, and now I've just been broken. So, yeah.
And can
I said small today at Starbucks.
Did you? All right, good. There you go. You're sticking it.
I also really liked the random terrorist attack, and they were all just like, they continued eating dinner.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, like that was just one of those like Jackie was saying, like, or I guess like you all have been saying, like, is like this is just reality now, you know?
Yeah.
But except for the difference is we'd maybe be seeing it on our phones. But I love like the literalization of that. Like it's in the room with us and we're still just eating our dinner. It was like, even though we're experiencing in our phones, I feel like we kind of have that same thing. Like, oh, it's happening right now. We can see it on our phones. Also, one other detail from the restaurant scene. Sorry, I have a lot about that one because I really liked it.
It was amazing.
Did you notice there were pictures of actual good food on their number? Like, they had little pictures with like really good looking food, but then they brought them these slop balls, like balls of slop. And it was like, here's the number 5. And it didn't look anything like the picture. Like the picture looked like a steak and like veggies. And they just brought him like a slop ball.
Well, but that's the flavor of the sludge.
I guess, but I just thought that was like such a nice, like,
but also like
touch, like, but you still get the picture of the actual food, but then you just get this disgusting slop ball.
I mean, that's just the extreme exaggeration of like the actual pictures of McDonald's versus what you get handed. You know what I mean? But I think that the menu moment, I'm glad we went back to the restaurant because I think that's the moment I became obsessed with this movie because it was like really funny, but also to me, I think what's really neat about this movie and why I'm glad they called it Brazil and not 1984 and a half, because I don't really want it to be attached because so much of it is so unique. But it's interesting to think of it like they were that aware of the similarities and that this is kind of a satire of 1984. But to me, there's all this subtle storytelling happening in the background of any given scene. Yeah. And it's so well thought out. And so to me, the picture menu, it's because no one knows how to read anymore.
Yeah.
You can't say filet mignon, people with Philip Mignon. No, they need to point.
And say the number. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sarah, you mentioned the older generation like having a problem with like the numbers. You know, my grandma at IHOP ordered the Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity pancakes with no Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity, and the guy's like, "So you want buttermilk pancakes?" "No, I want the Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity with no Rudy Tooty."
I miss the Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity.
Incredible. I didn't have many. Sarah covered most of mine. The only ones I had, I just loved when we first met the mom with like the chip clips stretching her face out vibe.
Oh my god!
It was amazing. Just seeing it. But yeah, I don't know, Jackie. What was your take on this?
I have a lot to kind of like add on to what Sarah said, just because I loved how she was talking about like how to feel about the dream sequences. And at first I also was like, I don't like how the female character is being portrayed as just this like fantasy, but I don't know, like maybe I'm giving the movie too much credit, but it seemed like aware of doing that. And I felt like I thought it was really interesting, like this was to me better than 1984 because it showed like the upper class and like the absurdity of like what they care about while tragedies are happening, kind of like was what Sarah was saying with like the restaurant scene. But I thought it was really interesting, like this was in the 80s and cosmetic surgery was being depicted as this like addiction of like needing more and more and more. And at that point, I don't even think it was. And again, like a lot of women like are addicted to cosmetic surgery. And I also, I think I'm going back to like the gender dynamics of like in all these scenes where it was just like men in suits. And I thought it was really interesting. Like the women are never actually like part of the bureaucracy. And they're just like, I think they just like literally are accessories. And like that is what that one main guy, Sam, is that his name?
Yep.
Sam has like internalized almost, so he just views women as this like accessory, this fantasy that he's dreaming about to like conquer and to be the hero. But I also just like thought this movie did a really good job of like portraying the spiritual. This sounds so douchey, you guys. I'm sorry. You guys have to be ready for like my. Yeah, this is gonna sound so pretentious and like, but like, okay, it really did a good job of showing like how modern society like kills us spiritually. Yeah, like how like even with the women, like you can see they're like lacking any sort of spirit, and like I don't know. I thought they did a good job with that.
No, I don't think it's douchey at all. I think it's intentional and really well executed.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to mention one more thing. The beautifying the ducks thing. I noticed in like the mom's house, like the ducks were bedazzled.
Okay.
Yes, there was one with like weird like rhinestones on it.
Oh, I didn't notice that because I was watching it the whole movie because I was like, someone has to have beautified their ducks.
Okay, I wrote it down. Yes, I wrote that down.
Oh, I'm gonna have to rewatch that scene because I want to see those beautiful ducks. Because I swear, I examined every duck in the movie because I was like,
I wrote
where are the beautiful ones?
Decorated ducks, amazing. Okay, next scene. This is I'm a big fan of this. Meeting Harry Tuttle. So Sam's journey leads him to Harry Tuttle, the renegade heating engineer, falsely accused of terrorism. Tuttle is a symbol of rebellion and freedom, operating outside the constraints of the bureaucracy. He helps Sam with a heating problem in his apartment, further inspiring Sam's growing dissent against the system. Sarah, I'm probably sure you want to speak about Bob Hoskins. But
well, I feel like everyone can relate to the idea that an actual competent employee is a radical act, right? Competence is a radical act. I love how he instantly just diagnosed the problem. He's like, all you need to do is put this in. And actually, Kyle and I were laughing so hard because we were like, what was the main character's name? I don't even remember his name.
Sam.
Sam. Every homeowner is Sam. He's like,
yes.
I can fix it easily with this. And he just goes, like he has no idea what it is. He's like,
sure.
oh, why are you still talking to me? Put it in. Like how every craftsman that comes to your house is trying to explain to you, oh, I just need to do this. And you're like, yeah, bro, do it. Like, I just want my disposal to work or whatever.
Did
I
you
just
guys?
love that.
We didn't realize that was Robert De Niro until credits.
Really? Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it was Robert De Niro, but I also didn't know going into this that De Niro was in the movie. I was like, what? What is he doing here? That's amazing. So,
And
yeah.
I think it's a good time as any to just mention the cast of this movie. So Bob Hoskins as the sinister repairman, who also, Sarah, is the villain of every homeowner.
Yes.
And we've all had that. It gets worse and worse and worse, and their comeuppance. I don't know, Kyle. Do you have a specific note on how Harry Tuttle deals with the sinister repairman towards the end of the movie?
Probably do. I'll have to look. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but
oh yeah, I do. Yeah, that was one of my.
It's intense. We'll get to it. But I just thought it was so funny how Harry Tuttle would always like zip line away,
yes,
and like
yes, Batman.
Yeah.
Clearly pointed out, it's not the same actor. It's very clearly a stuntman, but it's like a joke. Like, I don't even think they I think they left that intentionally in there.
Yeah, that was my note for him was HVAC Batman. Like he just fixes it and it goes away. I also love I don't know why, but why do the evil repairmen both have like insanely long brims on their hats or belts? Like what? It was just never. It was great. Yeah.
And then Martin Ferrero.
Bob Hoskins elevates every role he's ever in. Like he's so good.
Yeah,
I love him.
And then Martin Ferrero, Gennaro from Jurassic Park, the lawyer.
Oh, man. Was he the other guy, repairman, or he?
No, he's the main character.
No. I mean, in this scene, was he the second repairman? Not that.
No.
Oh, you're talking about Jonathan Pryce, the main actor. Was he? I don't know. Was Jonathan Pryce in the guy in Jurassic? I think he was similar. I don't know that it was actually Jonathan Pryce, but it looks a lot like it. But
is this not? Wait a minute. Is this?
Yeah.
The main actor is Jonathan Pryce.
Yeah.
It's not Martin Ferrero.
No.
You know who that is?
I do. I know who they do look a lot alike for sure. Yeah, the lawyer that gets eten in the toilet.
Yeah.
Jurassic, yeah.
I got all these Jurassic Park notes typed up. You're saying it's not the same guy? I didn't know.
But Jonathan Pryce is also in a lot of amazing stuff. So. Yeah.
That is wild to me that they're not the same person. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna look at this on Stream Team. We're gonna do a side by side.
On to something Sarah said. Son, what are you looking at?
I just can't believe it's not the. I had like a page of notes about the Jurassic Park actor.
We'll get a separated at birth thing going up.
Hey, it's not the guy.
I got it. I guess I'm accepting that. Let's move on.
Did you have something else to say, Jackie?
You better after that.
I feel like Sarah said something really cool, which is like, if you do your job, that's a radical act.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was like so good, and I love how like it was like against the rules for him to use that like thing to actually repair it, but like that. Like it's like he's radical because he can fix it in a more convenient way, but that would just cause too much like
it would bring the whole system down. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. And I love that because I just feel like I feel like that idea can be applied to so many aspects of modern life.
So true.
Yeah. Okay, Sam and Jill. Oh yeah, sorry, Jackie, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, was this scene where they said machines can't fix themselves?
Maybe. If not, talk about it while you're there.
Well, I just really liked when they said that, like the machines can't fix themselves because like then they end up like literally tearing his house apart.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just so many layers of irony in this. I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sam and Jill's romance. Sam eventually finds Jill, explains her precarious situation. Initially distrustful, she warms to him as he proves his sincerity. The two begin a romance, which is heightened by Sam's determination to protect her from the authorities. They go on the run together, evading the oppressive government forces. And so this is the part two. It's not part of this recap, but this is also, I think, the big dream sequence with the samurai and everything like that. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, Sarah, first, that whole escape samurai fight scene.
Well, actually, I might be going backward. This scene, I want to talk about the scene where he brings the money to the mom.
Sure, talk about it.
Because I thought that scene was really important.
Oh yeah.
Like he's
As the wife, not the mom.
sorry, the
the guy taken.
who was accidentally killed. Basically, they need to issue him a refund for the case of mistaken identity. However, he's already been killed. He's been executed for his crime.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to give the family a refund. But to give the refund would mean admitting they were wrong. So his boss doesn't know what to do with the refund. And so he comes up with this idea that he's going to just take it to the family. Sorry. Main character is Sam, right? I don't know why I'm forgetting. Yeah, Sam is going to take the refund to the Buttle family, not the Tuttle family. And during that scene, I feel like that's such an interesting scene because he tries to give the money to the grieving wife who's just sitting there staring at her destroyed living room and Christmas tree and the hole in the ceiling that's still there. And she's like, well, where's my husband? And he's like, well, here, I brought you this check for like 30 credits or whatever. And she's like, my husband, is he like dead? And she starts accusing him. And then it's so interesting how he reacts because he's like justifying himself. He's like, I did you a favor coming here. Like my coming here was super unorthodox. Like I didn't have to come here and give you this check. Like he actually thought he was going to be the savior somehow. Like because he brought them this check after they broke into, you know what I mean? It's like he's not acknowledging that he's still a representative of this horrible system.
But I think
I don't know what's going on there. There we go.
I think we lost Sarah for a second.
No.
If I can jump in while she's reconnecting, I think that she already cracked the code though about that because Harry Tuttle, a man really good at his job, is a heroic radical act, and that makes you this powerful, cool person. Sam thinks he's that. He's really good at this job. The problem, though, is that this job doesn't actually help people, and it's not actually important or impressive. And so, that was the moment when I was like, oh, Sam is not a good guy. He's not actually a kind heart. I'm not supposed to be rooting for him. He's satire.
Right.
Yeah. He is that sniveling man who doesn't know how to fix his own sink, but thinks he's better than the people who like actually get grease on their hands.
Right.
so douchey. But like that's why the whole dream sequences don't bother me.
I didn't get the impression he thought he was better. I just thought he was oblivious. Like I thought he was just like completely oblivious. He really thought she was going to be like grateful to him, and he really thinks he's like a good guy.
But he's just so detached from emotion.
Do you guys think he was like? I was just thinking of this as Sarah was talking, but like, do you think he actually knows how like fucked up the system he works for is, and he's like knowingly complicit in that, and like having to do these sort of like mental gymnastics to convince himself like that they're not, or is he actually like believe they're not as evil as they are?
I feel like he was.
If he looked at it, he would see it, but I think he's like deliberately not looking at it. And even in that scene where he's trying to give her the check, there's a moment where she's like really sad, and he looks at the TV. Like he looks, and he even says something about the TV to try to like distract her or like from her anger. It was such an interesting moment. I was like, oh my gosh, he can't deal. He can't deal with her like emotion. He can't deal with the reality of this moment, and he instantly goes to a screen.
Like the comfort of the screen.
I just thought was so like.
I feel like if it was like 0 to 100, and 100, your eyes are fully open. Like he's maybe like getting to like a 20, in this movie, whereas we, the audience, are like already at the end, and we're just like, how do you not see
Yeah.
this? But he's like starting to wake up, but not there.
But an incredible
Yes,
scene,
I
though.
feel like sorry. I just feel like part of his like fantasies, dreams, whatever, are like a subconscious, at least subconscious knowledge of like how evil or like what around him is, because like I liked how like it was very whimsical and beautiful, and then like it was kind of absent of any like industrialization, his dreams, and then those like
Yeah.
buildings popped up, and like so it's like weird because it's like he almost knows, but then like Sarah was saying, is deliberately like willfully ignorant. And honestly, like it reminds me of so much like we've been having conversations about like, oh, should we get rid of like Meta apps, Instagram, whatever, like, but then like I know my clothes come from sources that I find very immoral. I know like the food I eat comes from places I find very immoral. Like I'm like aware of these things, but then like I purposefully like don't want to go through the effort to like live a different way, or like I'm just like, well, like what are you going to do? That's how the world is. And it's like what are like, can you actually, because
affect change, right? Yeah, it's like
yeah, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna delete Instagram because Meta's being like fucking,
yeah,
you know,
It's
getting
like-
rid of their
yeah. It's like exactly right. It's like, oh, it's like, do I drive a car? Do I recycle? Do I like? You get nickel and dime with endless
Yeah.
evils. Which ones do you pick? Because you can't pick them all.
Right.
It's like, yeah,
And can we just like, oh, like I can just escape in my dreams, but like when is it worth it to like be aware and
Be present.
and what
Yeah.
yeah. What? Jeremy, do you want to go first? I guess we've gone around before.
Well, I just wanted to just point out, that scene where he's trying to give the grieving wife the check is amazingly shot. I think that's maybe the best scene in the whole movie, because he's in the background out of focus, and she's like just like really up close and just staring into the middle distance, and she's like, what have you done with his body? And it's the most gut-wrenching thing because the actress nails it. You really believe in that moment she's been through that. And so the fact that it's so powerful for the audience, but Sam just doesn't get it, and not even that is enough to rip him loose, I think he's a lost cause. But I do think Jackie's right. I think the dreams are clearly an expression of some innate desire that everyone has to break free. But it ain't gonna be
you
Sam.
can't express it in the real world, so it's coming out subconsciously.
Yeah.
What was your takes on? Well, I guess before that, I loved in the background I wrote, as part of my appreciation for the signs, I loved the Consumers for Christ sign, which was great. I also love the random like guys in hazmat suits playing like tetherball or volleyball or something.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And then the other one I had was they had the weird hunchback creatures in the dream at one point, but and then there was the stone floor creature, which is total Return to Oz vibes. Like which was about the same time, maybe the same year, wasn't it? Like, why did they have like animatronic rock monsters talking from walls or floors? But yeah, what was your take on the samurai itself and what that represented too? Yeah.
So can we finally have the sucker punch conversation? Because sucker punch ripped this movie. Like, there's literally the dream sequence against the samurai that's 3 times taller.
Really?
Have you not seen?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you watch Sucker Punch, you're gonna be like, okay, I knew this movie was derivative. I didn't know it was that derivative. And I actually like Sucker Punch. Like, I actually think that movie is cool, but like, less original than I thought it was. And the samurai in his dream is filled with flammable gas. So every time he like fights him and pierces his armor, like flame juts out. The tetherball, like Kyle's joking about the tetherball scene, but like I was just thinking about that refers to when they go to the land of like energy. And it's like where they all get their energy, and there's just fire shooting up. There's always explosions happening, things breaking, terrorist bombs going off, and everyone just goes about their day.
Yeah.
But then the guys in the hazmat suits playing tetherball. But it's like, well, yeah, you would play tetherball because it's a confined game. They're in like this dangerous energy plant. So the recreation has to be,
Yeah.
and maybe I'm giving this movie too much credit. Maybe they just thought it looked funny. But
Yeah.
I was just like, I just feel
That's
like
true.
this movie is
Yeah.
well thought out.
Yeah, liked that too.
Any other thoughts on what the samurai represented, or why a samurai?
No, I mean it's like this ancient warrior thing, isn't this like this idea of like going along with the old ways, and like that's like kind of the threat is the way that things have always been done. It's also, you know, very much like a very masculine symbol of like what we would think of as like the ultimate man.
Right.
And again, that ain't Sam, but Sam wants to be that. He wants to defeat the samurai.
Yeah, take
In
control.
a way, aren't we all trying to defeat our dream gas-filled samurais? I think.
Yeah. There it is. Okay, so final parts here. Sam and Jill's rebellion comes to an abrupt end when they're captured by the government. In a chilling turn of events, Sam is tortured by his friend Jack Lint, a high-ranking ministry official. Just as Sam's about to succumb, he's dramatically rescued by Tuttle and a group of rebels. Together, they destroy the ministry's oppressive machinery, and Sam escapes with Jill. We'll pause there for a second. I wanted to comment, Jeremy mentioned it earlier, this is also the part where Harry Tuttle sabotages the other two repairmen and hooks up a tube and fills their suits from the inside with actual shit, with sewage. I just wrote down they're literally full of shit, which is as a statement, which I thought was amazing. And then I also loved the line when he's says, I think he says to her when they're about to have sex, he's like, I thought you're supposed to be dead or whatever. She says, care for a little necrophilia, which was quite a line. And then also the line, don't, if you do this, it could jeopardize your credit rating. Was incredible.
That was a great line.
Yeah, it was gonna be tortured. Don't resist too long. It affects your credit rating.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Jeremy, do you have what your thoughts on this?
I don't. I'm gonna object to the host's decision to stop here. How can we stop here? Because what this what is actually happening is huge.
Yes. We'll talk about that in a second, but yeah.
Okay. This is the point where Sam is so lucky, you know, getting rescued by Harry at the last possible moment, that you go like, wow, what are the odds of that?
Mm-hmm.
But this is a dark comedy, so you're like, well, maybe that's really happening, maybe it's not. Everything seems to be turning out so well. And the gal who like was never that into him. I mean, you know, she might think he's kind of cute, but like he's annoying. And all of a sudden, her hair is longer, like in his dreams.
Right.
And she's super into him and wants him so badly. Like, it feels hard to swallow, and I won't say why because you're gonna get into that.
That's right. Jackie, what are your thoughts?
This might be going back a little, but I really loved when he was promoted and there was that scene where there was the group of men running back and forth. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I loved that scene so much because it just like perfectly sort of captured like, okay, we're all running around, right? But like there's no like purpose. Like they were just sort of shouting off this vague business lingo. Like I love that so much. And yeah, it was like very like stock market imagery vibes, but like they're all rushing but no purpose. And I love that. And I just like, I found it really disturbing that the Jack guy, he was the torturer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had this like super hyper violent job, but had this like kind of nonchalant attitude about it. I thought that was done really well. And then like his like kid was around just hanging out, like while he was torturing people. Like there was like the weird child stuff.
Oh, the child mask too. That's the next scene, but yeah, that he wore.
No, but there was a kid. Remember, we were like disturbed by it when she said something.
I remember. I wrote it down.
Okay. Yeah, say it, babe.
That the lead torturer, which is how they get the important information out of people, brought his daughter to work day, and he's covered in blood. He has just tortured someone, probably to death, totally unfazed. you almost get the sense that the daughter was nearby when he did this. And then when that character leaves and it's just him and Sam in the room, the little girl says, I want to see your pecker. Like, will you show me your privates? And it's like, what the, like, someone like sexualized this kid, right? And then this is also the point when everything seems to be going so well that he sees his mother again. Can I talk about that, Kyle?
Yeah, sure.
His mother has now had plastic surgery and looks identically like his fantasy girl.
Right.
And she and she's like annoyed that you're not calling me mother. And I'm like, well, so was the fantasy girl his mom the whole time?
Yeah.
And this is like this Oedipus thing because I mean, it's dark, but like, was he sexualized as a kid? And like, this is something people are doing to their children in this weird dystopia. It's this movie, as silly as it is, takes some hard right turns.
Yeah, I had my note on that funeral scene too was the pink ribbon coffin. It was very Squid Game, like with their coffins too. I was like, I wonder if they were inspired by that. So,
well, and that's so darkly funny though, because the person who died is this friend of his mom's who's just one plastic surgery after another keeps going wrong, and my complications had complications. And the last time you see her alive, she's just like bandages and puffy flesh just oozing out, and so then when her coffin gets tipped over accidentally, it's just chunks of meat. It's just like
That's right. Yeah.
This is like very reminiscent of The Substance, actually.
Yes, totally is. Like there's nothing left by the end. Yeah. What
I had another comment. I really thought it was interesting. Like there's one scene where, similar to the guys in the hazmat suits playing, I think, volleyball or tetherball, there's one scene where they get Sam and he's in like the police truck, but then the two police SWAT guys are like just chatting. Do you remember this scene?
I'm trying to remember
Can you write down what they said, what they were chatting about?
Yes, well, this is the next part of the plot, so maybe Kyle should.
Yeah, well, yeah. Let me finish up, and then we'll talk about the rest. Okay, so the conclusion part, as we were left on a cliffhanger, the triumphant escape is revealed to be a delusion. In reality, Sam remains strapped to the torture chair, having retreated into his dream world to escape the unbearable reality. The final scene shows Sam humming to himself, lost in his fantasy, as the camera pans out to reveal the bleakness of the world around him. So, all right, continue.
So, can I ask at what point the fantasy began? Because I thought he really did erase her and that he really did go back to his mom's house, but then when they came in and took him into the torture, like from then on everything was a dream. Is that right?
No.
So the scene where he erased her from the system, that didn't really happen? Was that part of his...
Was that when he declared her legally dead, or is that...
Yeah.
I think that maybe happened, but yeah, I have to go back and see. But
no, it wouldn't have happened.
He was in the chair. Yeah, like that was because that was after he was rescued by.
Oh, then yes,
Niro.
then maybe it didn't. Yeah.
So is everything from the De Niro rescue on?
I think because there was also the whole thing of like him being De Niro being smothered in paperwork and dying that way, which I'm assuming was fantasy. Yeah. Remember that? That was interesting.
Didn't die though. He disappeared.
Right? Like he was lost in the bureaucracy forever, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and it was really sad too because he's been this invincible Batman character, and he just gets hit with one piece of paperwork after another, and it's really scary because Jonathan Pryce like jumps on him and is trying to tear the papers off, and there's too many, and he just gets lost in it. But no, the fantasy begins the moment that his friend comes to lobotomize him with that little hook thing. And Harry Tuttle never rescues him. And everything from that point forward is here's the literary reference to impress Jackie. Ambrose Pierce, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. Are you guys familiar with that short story?
Yeah.
One of the Civil War soldier. Okay, babe, you're saying it's douchey to bring up, but that's what they did.
More obscure than that to impress me.
Whatever. God, excuse me for trying. But anyway, but this movie owes a lot to that short story, because in that short story, it's a man he's hanging from a bridge and he thinks he escapes and goes on this big adventure, but it's really his final flash of thoughts before his brain dies, because he's dying. And so all of that dream fantasy is just the split second before the lobotomy goes through. And so I don't think she's saved, and I don't think they ever have sex, and I don't think he ever sees his mom again. It's just I was the perfect way to end it, because this whole third act, you're being like, really now she's horny for him, even though he's horrible and just wants her to have the long hair and is drawing on the pictures of her to give her long hair, because like even
Also, can we talk about the sequence where she was just trying to do her job and he's the one, like, Kyle, in your summary, you said they ran from the law, but they didn't. She wasn't interested in doing that at all. She was doing her job.
Right.
And he's like, go, and puts his feet on the accelerator, and like they crash through the gate. I was like, what is he doing? This makes no sense. Like, he thinks they're having an adventure. But once again, it's like, read the room, Sam. Like, you're missing everything. Like, even when you try to rebel and be woke, you're oblivious. You're doing it wrong. Like, you're not doing it right. Like, you're not following the person who you are looking up to as this model of like, oh, she's like this cool, rebellious person. But like, you're not following her lead. You're trying to like, I don't know. I didn't like that. It bothered me. But I mean, I thought it was good. I mean, I liked it, I guess, as a movie, but like, it irritated me watching it.
I like totally agree, and think part of that is like he never had to learn how to actually like do his job. Like, there's so much about how his mom just kind of connected him with the right people to get him a job on this high. It's totally like how Patrick Bateman became vice president of some major company and no one knew why. Like, and I think like in a lot of these like systems, they just end up running themselves to the point where people can just like step away. But then I don't know where I'm going with that.
Well, babe, we are all just cogs in the machine, and the machine can't fix itself.
Machine can't fix itself.
There it is.
But okay, but like but I think that was intentional. This movie is so good. Sorry.
I also really loved how like this is going back to, but how like all the forms were just like forged by like they could just be forged.
Yeah.
So like, what is the purpose of any of these forms? And like, I love when he put the forms in the
pipe.
Oh yeah,
his little war with the pipe with the ducks.
Yeah.
Okay,
like,
but we
Talk about the desk war too.
yeah.
I loved that so much because it was the ultimate like symbol of like people fighting over pathetic things at work that don't mean anything. And it like reminded me, Jackie, of one time when we were like walking at Valencia. You said, you're like, you know, it's so weird how like teachers think they're so cool because like they get like to teach an AP class, but in reality, we're all just wandering around these shitty little portables.
So true. Like, we latch on to any form of like status of like, I have more desks than you. And even at my job, we have cubicles, and it's like a status thing of like, I have the cubicle near the window, and it's like, whoa.
Well, we never talked about it before, but I love how everyone in just this pointless beige bureaucracy, they judge other departments.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you're going into records? Oh, it's a dead end job. Impossible to get noticed. I'm like, yeah, I know what that feels like. I'm a teacher. But like, so what Sarah's referring to about the desk war is that when before everything hits the fan, and he actually works for a while at the Ministry of like Information Correction or Retrieval or whatever it is, he really has a desk mate. Like he shares an office with somebody, but in this world, everyone is isolated from each other. And so rather than just having them sit at the same desk, they put a wall, and they're pulling the desk back and forth into each other's rooms. And there's a lot of moments in this movie that are just really good comedy.
Yeah.
There's a point towards the beginning of the movie where he's trying to get in the car and chase down his dream girl that he saw. Oh, there she goes. I gotta go meet her. And his car has been ransacked and he has no tires left. So he hits the gas and he goes, woo, falls off the blocks and splat.
And his car is like the smallest possible like tricycle car you've ever seen.
The smallest possible tricycle car on the freeways that are wall-to-wall billboards because they don't want to show you the ugly desert that the world has become, which again used to be satire. But then, you know, when he's fighting over the desk, this is just a really hilarious scene where he's all mad and he just yanks the desk and you just hear his neighbor scream. Like, you just,
oh, so funny. Oh, and I love when he asks his neighbor to look up the information and he like is going so slow because he's like an idiot. It's like the incompetence, and he's like, "This is my machine," but he doesn't even know how to use it. It's just
and it has dust. It has dust on it. He's clearly never used it. It was great.
But also, though, he wants to use the computer, but this little apartment area workspace is so small that they can't pass each other, and so they basically just stand tip to tip, just looking at each other, and he's like holding him, and he's like, "I'll look her up. In fact, why don't you go? I'll look her up myself." And I was like, did this movie predict porn? Because the way he wanted to look her up in private was real skeezy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. The character of Lime, Charles McCowan, I don't know if Kyle recognizes the name. I know his face.
Yeah, he looked familiar, but I didn't place him either. Yeah.
Hilarious little side character. And also, when he's in trouble, Lime doesn't want to help. Like, we don't want to help our coworkers.
Right, of course. All right, so we brought it in here. Let's do our usual best and worst. So I will start with Sarah. Favorite part of the movie, least favorite part of the movie.
Well, I think I already said my favorite part was the ducks, but I also like the shoe hats. Those were really great too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I really liked a lot of things about this movie. But yeah, I didn't understand the relationship between him and the girl. I thought that was the weakest part of the movie. I didn't think it was enough to drive him. Maybe if they'd have had a history together or something. I just thought it was kind of weird. And as bad, I think, as it was in 1984, because I always felt like that was a real shoehorned in relationship as well. The girl with the red sash or whatever in 1984. I thought this was almost worse. I just didn't like I didn't like it as a plot point. Now if I look at it as a more thematic thing that, he's escaping into his imagination, and was it supposed to be his mom? I don't know. Then maybe I can get on board with it a little bit more, like as a symbol, I guess. But as like a plot point, I generally did not like that, and didn't like, again, a lot of the dream sequences. I just thought I thought it was more interesting to be in the quote unquote real world, because I thought there was more to say. But yeah.
How about Jackie?
Yeah, I think my favorite parts of this are definitely like the imagery with the upper class and the plastic surgery, cosmetic procedures. Like, that to me is really brilliant and pretty amazing of how they predicted like where that would go, considering it wasn't as like prevalent in the 1980s.
Yeah.
I also, just part of me always loves movies where like there's those moments where the sort of like bureaucracy breaks and there's this like pure joy. Like, I loved the scene where all the forms were like raining down. Like, those scenes always get to me because I get really just like very frustrated with like things like that, and just like work. Like, I don't yeah. But yeah, I think like the gender dynamics, like Sarah was talking about, that's kind of like my least favorite, in their relationship. But for me, I thought it was actually a little bit better than 1984. Like, 1984 was pretty direct in its misogyny and like Winston just totally objectifying all the women around him, and like very much like Julia is like a sex object. But I thought it was a little bit better than that. I thought maybe it was a bit more self-aware in the fact that like women in this culture are just like accessories. There's even a scene where like in the midst of this tragedy, like terrorist attacks, like everything happening, the women I think are like shopping for lingerie.
Oh yeah.
And I've always found lingerie to be this completely like absurd, like we're literally turning ourselves into decoration to be unwrapped or whatever.
Yeah.
And like the fact that that's like upper class women's priorities in this culture, I thought was interesting, but still I don't think they really successfully captured whatever that relationship could have been. It could have been way more developed or interesting than what it was, and done more for like gender, because she was cool. Like she was this cool butch truck driver, like okay, like she actually didn't like, you know, but it was maybe like a class thing, because at one point I also saw a female like she was like a cleaner, like in yeah, so I don't know, but yeah, more with their relationship, because like I thought that those were the only moments where it didn't feel like as smart as it could have been.
Yeah.
But Jeremy,
There's very little I didn't love about this movie. So I feel like as far as like what was the best thing about it was that I've never seen, like, I would say the whole movie is a metaphor, and it never became tired. It never became cliche. I never got sick of it. I never like rolled my eyes and was like, oh, that was a little on the nose, because everything is super on the nose, but there's also this extra layer to it. It's one of the most interesting, I think, scripts I've ever experienced through film. And so then I don't really have a worst. Like, I mean, we're gonna get to the score in a second. I don't think this is a perfect movie, but I would say that the one thing they didn't predict accurately, because so much of this movie is now just coming to life before our eyes in a really scary way, but apparently the writers could not predict email because they still use singing telegrams.
Sarah was saying that too. There was no like what were you saying? Like no screens or phones, right? Is
No,
that what
I said there were screens. They accurately predicted that, but like no movie that tries to predict the future, like from an earlier era, has predicted like data storage.
Yeah,
right? Like it was all
Every
printouts
movie
and
that's
paper
set in the
still.
future,
Yeah.
there's still like paper is still a big thing.
Yeah.
So I just thought
Yeah.
it was funny. There were file cabinets everywhere, but then there were screens everywhere. But it's like, so like they knew there would be screens everywhere, but they didn't think that they'd be holding information. I don't know. I just think that that's very interesting.
Yeah, but so the singing telegram though, it's
Goes
I mean,
something else. Yeah.
the lady is like in fishnets and her
Yeah.
butt's kind of hanging out, and it's like, oh, this is gross. But so she
Her
delivers the
singing's really
message.
bad.
Yeah, her singing's really bad, and she delivers the singing telegram, and then he goes, oh, like you, thank you very much. She goes, it's paid response. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, mother. I won't be able to. You don't have to sing it. You can just tell me what you want me to like. I died laughing.
I like
So
that.
the worst part is that they didn't see email coming. Come on.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
9
It's similar-
out of 10.
She's right, dude. It's like it was a joke too, but like Back to the Future 2, where he has all the screens, but he gets fired by fax.
Yeah.
It's like the same kind of thing. Incredible. Okay, so before we get to the scores, just a few, pull this up here, just a few quotes from some of the critics and people at the time, including Terry Gilliam himself. So LA Times critic Kenneth Turan described this film as the most potent piece of satiric political cinema since Dr. Strangelove. Roger Ebert was a little bit less enthusiastic in the Chicago Sun-Times. He gave the film 2 out of 4 stars, said it was hard to follow, lacked a confident grasp on its characters' roles in the story, awash in elaborate special effects, sensational sets, apocalyptic scenes of destruction, and a general lack of discipline. However, he did say there are scenes that show a lot of imagination and effort. He especially enjoyed Sarah's scene, in which Sam moves into half an office and finds himself engaged in a tug of war over his desk with a man through the wall. I was reminded of a Chaplin film, Modern Times, and reminded too that in the Chaplin economy and simplicity were virtues, not the enemy. Pauline Kael described Brazil as an ornery, intellectually fuzzy labor of love that presents a melancholy, joke-ridden view of a future filled with absurdity and decay. She noted the film dissolves the boundaries between fantasy and reality, depicting a world where reality is so intrinsically awful that fantasy will always be needed. And then Mark Gregg of Do Reviews highlighted the film's visual inventiveness, its relevance to contemporary society. He said Brazil offers a scalding social commentary on surveillance and class differences, suggesting that its chaotic system feels more frightening than Orwell's deliberate oppression. That to me really hits home. If someone's super competent in oppressing you, it's one thing. When it's chaotic and oppressing you, it's maybe scarier. Not to say that maybe that's what's happening around us right now, but that really resonated for me. And then finally, Terry Gilliam himself said to the New York Times, "People think I'm a prophet and that Brazil described the world we're living in now a few years ago," he said, "but we were living in that world then. People just weren't paying attention the way they do now," which I think is pretty interesting. So finally, we get to the Strauss score. So I don't know, Jeremy, this is how we rate the movie. If you want to give our little summary of what the Strauss score is.
So before we do that, I got a 30-second tangent.
Yeah.
28 years later is a zombie movie coming out this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
If they had just waited 5 years, they could have made that movie come out 28 years after the first one. And it truly would have been 28 years later. And I bring that up because I think it's interesting that this movie was primarily filmed in 1984. I bet they were trying to get a release date in 1984 and didn't hit the mark. Because that would have been really fun and interesting. So the Strauss scale came about during the pandemic. My family and I did Zoom movie nights, and afterwards we would rate it out of 10. 5 is you don't regret watching it. So if you don't regret watching it, it starts at a 5, and then you just follow your heart to the score. And if I can go first, this movie is a freaking 9. It's so good, so entertaining, so thought-provoking. The acting is really good. The humor is really good. The sets are really good. It's just, I cannot believe I've never even heard of this movie for how much I think it just nails its thesis of let's make a dark comedy that's scary because it feels so familiar. It's not a 10 because there is a point in the third act where I get it starts to lose my attention and I'm like, okay, let's wrap this thing up. But I really like where it ended up. So 9 out of 10 for me. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I also thought 9 out of 10. For a minute, I was like 10 out of 10. And then I was like, it's not perfect. I mean, I guess a 10 doesn't have to be perfect, but I think, again, the stuff I already talked about that I didn't like, the gender stuff, just takes it down one notch for me. But I did really like it. Something we didn't talk about that I liked, like going back to the idea of like paying attention, was that lady who was just transcribing torture and just sitting in the office like she's like, ow, ow. I'm like, oh, is she doing the transcript of his torture sessions?
Right,
I think she's doing.
That was amazing, yeah.
And the workaday nature of violence and terrorism, like, I would say the thesis of this movie is like violence and terrorism are bureaucracy, you know what I mean? I thought it was brilliant and hilarious. And I've seen movies that are hilarious and I've seen movies that are brilliant, but for me, I love it when it's both. So I thought it was very watchable. I would rewatch it. And that always pushes it up for me, is if it's got a high rewatchability, because I love rewatching movies, and I would rewatch this. I really enjoyed it.
Did you go, Jeremy, yet or not yet? Or Jackie didn't go yet, right?
Jackie didn't go yet.
You want to go last, Jackie, or do you want to go now? Do you?
Whatever. I mean, I'm also a 9.
Okay, go. Go ahead and say yours.
There's so much that is prescient about this, and even what Sarah was talking about of translating torture, it reminds me of people that have to like, what's the word? Yeah, I think I watched like something about this, like people that have to screen what goes on YouTube.
I was just gonna
Or
say this.
whatever.
I knew that's where you're heading. Totally. The content moderators.
Yes.
Moderators,
Yeah, the content moderators, like it's totally like, let's just have to consume torture, have to consume all this, and it's but there's just so much that is prescient that I was really impacted by. So yeah, 9 out of 10.
Yeah. I'm also a 9, I think, too. I forgot I skipped myself for the last one. That was the one thing for me, was also the main woman, other than her character. I thought, like, she was cool. I didn't think she was a good actress, but I thought she was cool. And so that, for me, helped her a little bit, but like, I didn't find her that compelling generally. And I loved De Niro, like the idea of the competent person being the hero, or being a rogue agent, was my favorite part. But yeah, I would say a 9 too, maybe just like a little bit under because of that, but overall, yeah, really fantastic. Is that,
Did
Lisa,
you
is
guys
that?
like the ending?
I did. I liked the ending a lot. Yeah.
Mm.
Did you not like it? Yeah.
No, I did. I just I thought it was a perfect ending. Like, that's the only.
I thought it was on thesis of like I thought the whole movie was about distracting yourself from not looking at these horrible things and not looking at what you're a part of, and like, so I thought the ultimate ending was like that he's in a dream world, because he was in a dream world anyway. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I did kind of love that pastoral sequence where they, in their little mini house, they were like out in the country. Is
that Lisa, is that Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, wasn't that Heath Ledger's last movie that he filmed before? I never watched it, but I think it might be. It might be crazy, but let me know if you. Yeah, it is. Okay.
I just said yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Has he done a movie since then, Terry Gilliam? I'm curious. I don't know. Maybe he has, and I haven't been following his recent stuff. Anyway, let me go to my last screen here. Jeremy's favorite. I skipped this last time, so we'll make sure we get him in. So until we all meet again, and we'll discuss amongst ourselves. Maybe we'll even ask in the community what we should watch next for our next one. But where can we find everyone online? I know Sarah always never plugs herself, but gotta have something. Yes, no.
Got nothing to plug.
Nothing to plug. How about Jackie?
I'm a writer, and I am currently on Instagram, but I'm thinking of starting something else. I'm thinking of starting a Substack.
Yay.
But
It's a concept of a plan.
Yes. Hey, why not say the concept of the plan? It's at Jacqueline Francis, Jaclyn Francis with an E.
Nice. Very nice. How about Jeremy?
Well, like I said, so desperate to plug it. Got to get up to 5 followers here, Kyle. No, I have a retro gaming podcast and YouTube show called The Old Switcheroo. oldswitcharoo.com has links to all of our stuff, and it will be for a while out, but we are going to have an episode with all 3 of our fellow panelists from today.
Yeah.
So look forward to that in season 3. It was fun to record, and just love talking movies with you guys. Thanks again for having us, Kyle.
Yeah, and you're welcome. I do a newsletter every Sunday, kylesjunkdrawer.com if you want to check it out. But today was a little bit weird because for the past 5 years, it has been featuring TikTok videos, and then it was banned last night and unbanned this morning, and God knows what will happen next. So it's really a journey. Cool. So thank you for coming. Thank you, Lisa, and also to Karen, who's lurking around in the chat as well. We will see you all next time.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See ya.
Bye, guys. This was fun.
Bye.